Hi there, and welcome to my end of the year celebration video. In this video I'm going to look back at all the films that I saw that came out in 2017. I'm going to give you my 25 favourite films of the year, and my 10 least favourite films of the year, and then wrap up with some overall thoughts about how the year went for cinema. I live in the UK, and so the only criteria for a film to be considered for this list is that 1, I must have seen it, obviously, and 2, it must have got a release in the UK, either in cinemas, on Netflix, or on television. I tried to make sure that all the films I included got a cinema release somewhere in the world, but I can't guarantee that. There's 2 reasons why I'm going by UK release dates. 1, I live in the UK, and 2, I want this video out in 2017. As a result, you should be aware that some of the awards films of 2016 had a 2017 release date in the UK, and some of the big awards films at the moment have a 2018 release date in the UK. So there'll certainly be some discrepancies with other people's lists. Why don't I wait for those awards films to come out? Well, 1, I don't want to, and also I'm going to do an update around time with the Oscars anyway. Finally, I just wanted to say that although I've seen over 100 films this year, there is plenty of films I missed out on. I didn't see some of the year's biggest movies, I didn't see some of the most acclaimed festival fare, and there's plenty of other films I cared about but I didn't get around to seeing. There's also some anomalies in that there's films that I saw at festivals that would definitely be in contention for my favourites list, but I don't think they'll ever get a UK release date. There's also been some debate about Twin Peaks: The Return, which some esteemed organisations like Sight and Sound and Cahiers du Cinema included in their best films of 2017 list. I haven't seen it, but I'm a fan of David Lynch's work and it quite possibly would have made this list had I seen it. If you want to know all the films I considered for this video, then I'm going to either put a list in the description or in the comment section. Now all that's over, let's move on to my actual lists, beginning with my worst films of the year. Before I get into my top 10 worst films of the year, I thought I'd just give a few dishonourable mentions, films that almost made it into my very worst list. So there was 50 Shades Darker, Snatched, Kingsman: The Golden Circle, Ghost in the Shell, and Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Men Tell No Tales. Starting off my actual list, at number 10 is Wolves at the Door. This is a horror movie so generic, it ends up just being really unwatchably boring and lacks any emotion. The fact that it's also based on the real life murders of Sharon Tate and her friends by Charles Manson's followers just makes it all the more tacky and terrible. And number 9 is The Bye Bye Man, a horror movie that's even more generic and even more lacking in scares, interest or quality filmmaking. It's a sort of film you instantly forget about, and if you do remember it, it just gives you a migraine. For number 8, I've gone for The Mummy, which was a universe kickstarting movie that was so shit the whole cinematic universe is currently on hold. It's likely the worst Tom Cruise movie in years, and it's so unexciting and tedious and made even worse by the fact that there's so many universe building references that it doesn't even work as a standalone movie. Yet another horror movie at number 7, Mother. This is so awful due to its just pretentious nature in style and in substance. Writer-director Darren Aronofsky clearly thinks he's saying something deep and profound about religion and environmentalism, but in reality he's just spouting horseshit that's pseudo-philosophy for 2 hours, and it has no subtlety at all. At least the experience is intense, but I was tempted to play this lower on the list. At number 6 is Assassin's Creed, the dreadful video game adaptation that was just so boring and uninteresting. It fails to utilise any of its fascinating premise and ends up just being a badly acted mess with no redeemable features. At number 5 is Sing, the trashy animated hit by Studio Illumination Entertainment. It's just a collection of pop tunes forced into a really dull and predictable story. It's absolutely lowest common denominator movie making. I cannot imagine an animated film being as corporate and soulless as this. Oh wait, I can. At number 4 is The Emoji Movie, a film so bad its terribleness is pretty much a meme at this point. It's absolutely unfunny, unimaginative and insulting. There's a couple of merely subpar jokes, but everything else is just irredeemably terrible. At number 3 is The Circle, a film so shit it didn't even get a proper UK cinema release. It's like the worst possible version of a Black Mirror episode, diluted down for teenagers and then made insufferable. There's not a single idea that hasn't been done better elsewhere, and it manages to draw out career worst performances from almost all of its cast. Number 2 is Transformers: The Last Knight, easily the worst blockbuster of the year. It has the same problems as the other Transformers films, as it's overlong, has incomprehensible action, poorly developed characters, lame comedy, and a terrible attitude towards the female characters. On the bright side, it is my second favourite Transformers movie. And number 1 is the utterly god-awful The Book of Henry. This is far and away the most misjudged movie of the year. It has a childlike tone and dumb story, so it's clearly not for adults, but it's also got a really dark subject matter, so it's clearly not for kids either. This is a film about child abuse, children dying, attempted murder, and elaborate schemes to get around the US gun regulations for some reason. It's terribly written, directed and acted with just a hodgepodge of dark material and light-hearted tone which just kills the momentum in every single scene. Utterly, utterly garbage. Now that's the worst over, let's move on to the good stuff, and I'm going to go through my 25 favourites of the year. First of all, some honourable mentions. A Quiet Passion, the Lego Batman movie, Blade of the Immortal, The Lost City of Zed, Wonder Woman, Icarus, Free Fire, It's Only the End of the World, Elle, Aquarius, The Salesman, Baby Driver, Raw, Good Time, and The Death of Starling. Kicking us off at number 25 is The Florida Project, a deeply affecting tale of impoverished youth. It's an important film that highlights those rarely seen in American cinema and is made of a touching humanity and a profoundly realistic tone. Moving into comedy, my number 24 is A Mile with Stories, New and Selected, a movie which manages to get a great performance out of Adam Sandler and tells a simple story of family ties. It's subtly emotional and filled with great characters. For number 23, I've gone with On Body and Soul, which features one of the best romances of the year. The lead characters are a man with a crippled arm and a woman who displays autistic behaviour, and through their introverted actions and some unlikely coincidences, they find each other and happiness. It's a tender and sweet movie, but also juxtaposed with brutal imagery. And number 22 is Get Out, the debut of director Jordan Peele. It's a brilliant and timely satire on race relations and white liberalism. Get Out is both disturbing but also enjoyable as a horror flick, allowing it to be nuanced and entertaining as it prompts serious thought. Number 21 is Tony Erdmann, a nearly 3-hour German comedy that is a lot more exciting than it sounds. It ends up being a story of family told with passion and good-hearted humour. There's also a really great sequence involving nudity, which is perhaps the funniest scene of the year. It's a charming success. Going even more art house at number 20 is Song to Song, the latest film from visionary author Terrence Malick. This isn't his best work, but it's a film of soaring visuals that captures love as a flowing tapestry. It's beautiful and pondering, allowing you to soak in its complex web of relationships and betrayal. Yet another Netflix release, number 19, is Okja, the latest from Bong Joon-ho, one of Korea's finest directors. It's a story of ethics told with humour, but it also has a very nasty underbelly. It's thought-provoking, exciting, and self-aware of its tonal whiplash, which juggles comedy and drama perfectly. At number 18 is My Life as a Courgette, a French-Swiss animation that tackles the hardships faced by children whose parents can't look after them. It's uniquely stylised and designed to maximise emotion, making it one of the most endearing films of the year. Visiting Korea yet again, number 17 is The Villainess, which is one of the finest action films of the year. It has some intense drama, which is as incomprehensible as it is ultimately engaging. But what really matters is the badass lead character and her fiery vengeance. It contains bone-crunching action and characters to invest in, which makes it a top-tier action movie. For number 16, I've gone with War for the Planet of the Apes, the finest film in the almost 50-year franchise. It's as profound as the best Planet of the Apes films, dealing with war, equality and morality in various shades of grey rarely found in blockbuster cinema. With some awesome visuals and great storytelling, this is superbly made and cleverly thought out. And number 15 is documentary I Am Not Your Negro, based on unfinished work by writer James Baldwin. The documentary touched on race relation in 20th century America, but does so from an intellectual insight that few ever really understand. It ends up being a deep discussion on racial tensions, but also a scathing indictment of society's failure to tackle these issues. And number 14 is Call Me By Your Name, a coming-of-age romance drama about a love affair between a young Italian man and an older American man. It's visually stunning and quietly captivating in its slow and intimate portrayal of love and lust. It's one of the year's many great LGBTQ films. My favourite animated film of the year at number 13, In This Corner of the World, an anime about life in 1930s and 40s Japan, told from the perspective of a young woman. This is utterly wonderful, with carefully crafted visuals and a grounded story which becomes incredibly emotional as the horrors of war rage on. It's a beautiful character study and an experience that leaves you reeling. And number 12 is A Ghost Story, a complete oddity of a film that takes so many risks but nails its eerie tone and profound meditation on life and death. It fractures time and reality to become one of the most radical and interesting films of the year. Plus bonus points for a full 5-minute unbroken shot of Rooney Mara eating a vegan pie. For number 11 I've chosen Jackie, a film unfairly overlooked at a bunch of award shows last year. It's a biopic covered in layers of untruth that gets to the intimate and personal nature of the aftermath of JFK's assassination, with an interesting insight and a perspective wrapped in exquisite detail and a tight narrative. Another of last year's award contenders, number 10 is Manchester by the Sea, the quietly understated drama from writer-director Kenneth Lonergan that features a perfect performance by Casey Affleck and is filled with enough emotional outbursts and harsh truths to break your heart in the smallest of ways. Best in Jackie, as the best biopic of the year directed by Pablo Larraín, number 9 is Neruda, a super meta and intelligent look at the life of poet Pablo Neruda. It blurs fiction and reality to tell a story that's funny, interesting and entirely unpredictable, all while showcasing the legacy of a fascinating historical figure. At number 8 is Star Wars The Last Jedi, a breathlessly exciting sequel that sits among the best of the long-running franchise. It's respectful to the series' legacy and filled to the brim with great characters and set pieces. The fact it also happens to be deeper and darker than most Star Wars movies is just a bonus. Number 7 is The Love Witch, a bizarre mix of genres that is one of the most entertaining films I saw all year. Director Anna Biller has spoken out against bad interpretations of the film for many men, but to me this was a wonderfully enjoyable film that examines the role of women in films and in society, satirising it hilariously and providing many gorgeous images along the way. It invites you to enjoy it, and I found it to be brilliantly self-conscious and very fun. At number 6 is Dunkirk, a blockbuster from blockbuster auteur Christopher Nolan. Whilst Nolan is overrated in many regards, Dunkirk is one of his very finest works, and an intense look at a key historical moment. It's a triumph of scale, with so many strands unifying together to depict an event without any cheesiness or manipulation. It's simple, but outstanding in almost every way. Going right back to the beginning of January. Number 5 is Silence, the latest work of master director Martin Scorsese. After a few lesser movies in recent years, Silence is one of Scorsese's best works and tackles religion head-on, similar to some of his other masterpieces. It's a deeply humbling and moving ode to the power of faith and a grim tribute to those persecuted or forced to apostatize. And number 4 is The Handmaiden, a deliciously messed up work from Korean master director Park Chan-wook. The Handmaiden is all about eroticism and is told in a very controlled but deliberately provocative manner. It's thoroughly twisted and totally unpredictable, all whilst maintaining a level of calm that few films as intense as this can. It's one of the finest thrillers of recent years. For number 3, I've got one of the finest sequels ever made, Blade Runner 2049. Taking the original's premise of are you human and does that matter, Blade Runner 2049 probes whether you are what you think you are and whether that matters. It's deeply intelligent science fiction, which asks so many questions but answers so few, leaving it philosophical and existential in a way that few blockbusters are ever allowed to be. And number 2 is OJ Made in America. Some might not consider this a film, as it did premiere on the BBC as a TV series, but I'm going to include it because it was made as a film, it won an Oscar, and I binge watched it as a film. Plus the Twin Peaks counts and so does this, and I really don't want to talk about it. This is one of the most significant documentaries ever made, as it meticulously details the life of O.J. Simpson and contextualises every single moment as part of the rich tapestry of America's racial history. Watching this is eye-opening on why events happened as they did, and the film ultimately becomes one of the greatest ever explorations of race and class in America. For my number 1, the best film of 2017, there was only ever going to be one choice for me: Moonlight. Moonlight is a simply stunning work of simplicity, tarnished by the smear now associated with winning the Academy Award for Best Picture. It is a film so unlike contemporary American cinema, with a style reminiscent of the historic European art house scene and a structure influenced by Hao Shai-shen. It leaves so little explicit, and each and every moment is drawn from an energy infused by the on-screen presences more than the dialogue and story. It is beautiful form over a narrative that is non-existent, because the narrative is forever cut short, both in each scene and by the innate structure of the project. It's beautiful, deep, profound, moving and genius cinema. A humbling experience on every watch. So that's my favourite and least favourite films of 2017. This year has provided loads of classics, but also a fair share of misfires. It's a fairly average year for cinema, I feel, but not one without its highlights. One noticeable thing was the sheer number of great films that happened to be socially progressive, with lots of great films directed by women, and I mean a lot, as well as loads of films with strong female leads, and other great films that featured queer characters, racial issues, or were about vegetarianism or meat consumption. Of course, there were some less impressive films that had socially progressive aspects, but generally speaking there was a strong selection of films that had those themes this year. On the mainstream front, 2017 was fairly mixed, with some of the best blockbusters of recent years, but also some of the very worst. The superhero movies were also a mixed bag, with only one really coming out as I expected. The rest were entirely unpredictable, with films either being good but disappointing, or surprisingly great. Some have claimed this to be a really great year for horror cinema, and whilst I did see some good horror films, most of what I did see was pretty bad, although I did miss out on some of the most acclaimed films. we've recently had a really good run of animated films, but this year seems to have slumped a little, with 2 turkeys and very few other animated films that I cared about seeing. On the bright side, the Lego movies did deliver, and there was some very fine animated works coming out of Japan and Europe. Moving away from the mainstream, there was plenty of my favourite auteurist directors who returned this year, such as Park Chan-wook, Martin Scorsese, Terrence Malick, Edgar Wright, Xavier Dolan, Takeshi Miike, Sofia Coppola and Catherine Bigelow. Looking towards the big festivals, some of the year's best films played in Berlin or Sundance at the start of the year, and there was plenty of greats from Cannes. In fact, there was a lot of great films from Cannes this year. Overall, 2017 has been a pretty solid year for cinema all around. There have been some great films across almost all genres and plenty of highlights. Of course, there are some disappointments, but there's also some surprises. I didn't always agree with the consensus, and there's plenty of overrated movies, but similarly, there was plenty more that were underrated. Generally speaking, this has been a diverse and fascinating year for cinema, and I cannot wait for 2018. Thanks for watching. If you want to hear more of my movie opinions, then subscribe. I post reviews all the time. To keep up with my movie watching, you can follow me on Twitter or Letterboxd, links in the description. And once again, thank you for watching.